So thank you all for joining. Happy to share this information with you guys, and please see this only as a starting point. Any questions you have either during the talk or anytime later on, I'd be happy to reply. As Joanne knows, I'm open about that. So what we'll do today is we'll discuss 6 of the Danziger cut flower products that were brought up by you guys as the most important ones. And of course, we can always add others later, or you can even ask questions about other products as we move along. So we'll start with Danziger's Scabiosa Scoop. So first, let's talk about the end product. So first of all, this is a new type of Scabiosa that we're introducing, well, have introduced 7 years ago. Hybrids, quite dramatically different from what people used to know as the seed products and the Caucasia perennial varieties, mostly in several aspects. One is, especially compared to the seed products, the stems are much more straight and sturdy and strong. They can hold up the flower head on its own. You know, you could basically hold the stem like this and the flower will not bend. Very good lengths. As you can see, we're aiming higher and higher. Already have quite a few varieties that can even reach 26 inches and more. Also, the flower, and this is especially compared to the old perennial types, are very full flowers. And as you will see soon when we talk about the Bonbon series, even actual ball-shaped flowers. We have a very wide palette of colors, many different. Again, you are probably familiar with it, but you'll see it as we move along. Different head sizes, different head shapes, versatile uses. It can be either a centerpiece, that is our focal series aimed at that because of the large size of the flower head, or as fillers or as accent givers. And basically, it can even be sold on its own as a consumer bunch. This photo here on the right can give you a hint of that. And very important is the vase life. All of our varieties are 14 days and over, making it also very good additions to bouquets. This is just a bit of inspiration. Basically, this is the type of slides we'll have for each of the products. So I'll first give you a little bit about the end product, then into inspiration, then into cultivation. So the inspiration side is just to show you how this product can be used in different vases. And there are a lot of photos to be shared on the Danziger website. I think Joanne has access to our Canto, which is another source of photos that you can use if you need. Now let's talk a bit about the cultivation, just like the main points. And of course, later on, if you want more details, I'll be happy to share. So our Scabiosa are all vegetative. So the planting material is rooted or unrooted cuttings. Of course, you guys are importing the unrooted cuttings from us and then rooting them in the States. Planting density is not too high. We're talking about 6 to 8 plants in a net square meter of bed. So that makes it about 17,600 in an acre. The growth cycle is quite unique and interesting, and that's why it really befits US growers that are, in many cases, seasonal. And that is that it first has the vegetative stage, which takes about 3 to 4 months. But then once you get it into the flowering flush, that flush continues for a very long period of time, 4, even 5 months. Usually, it depends on the timing, but for example, in Mediterranean countries such as Israel, South Italy, we usually plant in autumn and then harvest all through winter and into spring. When does the flush stop? When it starts getting too hot, usually over 35 degrees centigrade. Now, in this period of time, you can really get very, very, very nice seeds. Plus, basically, what we're harvesting is not even the main stem, it's the pedicels that are carrying the flowers, and there's an abundance of those. So we're talking about the numbers you can see here, well over half a million per acre per year. Regarding the initiation to flowering, it is a long day plant. So in wintertime, it's advisable to use artificial lighting. In summer, of course, it flowers naturally. There are systems to if you want to bypass the use of lighting, you can do a little bit of stress treatment, meaning dropping irrigation levels to try to induce the flowering, but usually it won't be a uniform high producing flush, and therefore we do recommend using lighting. A lot of our larger scale growers use the stress treatment as a supplement to the lighting to make it even more of a uniform flush. And here on the right side, you can see what it looks like. This is a greenhouse in Holland in summertime. Unbelievable, the yield and the continuity of it. You can actually see in this photo, flowers already beyond harvest stage and flowers that are completely closed at the same time, just to show you that it just keeps on producing and producing. From the point of view of plant protection, the main enemy we have to watch out for are viral diseases. It is sensitive to a number of viruses such as TMWV and others. But it's no real issue if we can avoid having the main vectors, which are whitefly and thrips. If we can reduce the whitefly and thrips populations in our growing area, be it greenhouse or outdoor, as much as we can, that is best. And there are many ways of doing this. Of course, chemical treatments, but not only. For example, traps are very commonly used. You know, the yellow and blue sticky traps, which are extremely efficient in reducing populations. So for the grower, why should he choose growing our Scabiosa? First of all, of course, is the market. The market is increasing all the time. Demand is up and up and up because it's a unique and new product. I've experienced this when I visited the US in May as well. So I know that the US market is also quite hungry for this product. For us, it's our biggest growing product all over the world. Has a very high productivity in a short time span. So let's say a grower is planning for a winter crop in a greenhouse, but then wants for something else in summertime or the other way around. He could play around with it. And in that half year, he'll get a lot of stems to sell. The growth is very uniform. So you can grow different varieties in the same area. And that's very important because usually the market would like to have a range of colors from the same seller. So the grower can plant several varieties together, treat them the same, and they will be growing the same. It's very low on labor demand. It's easy to harvest, sort, and pack. I shouldn't say very low because it does have very high yields. So there's a lot of harvest to be done, but I will say that one worker can get a lot of stems done in a day. Finally, there's a very big advantage over import because this is a product that doesn't necessarily travel well. It is affected by what we call geotropism. So when you're sending it horizontally in boxes overseas from, let's say, South America, they will tend to bend. So some of the growers send them vertically. Some of them even use plastic straws, and those things make it very expensive and complicated. So for the US grower that can, in many cases, ship it to his customers in buckets in water, it's a tremendous advantage. Okay, let's move on. Oh, sorry, why is it stuck now? There we go.
Daniel, a question. I have a question for you.
Sure, go ahead.
The long day treatments, so our grower base can be highly sophisticated, greenhouse systems to no sophistication. What type of lighting is necessary to get the initiation?
Well, basically, we always work on the same lighting grid, I would call it, meaning that the spreading of the lamps, the distance between the lamps is the same, and that is usually 3 by 3 meters. Sorry for the meters. So that would be almost 10 feet between lamps in each direction. Now, the type of lamp, it could be many different types. It used to be very common to use the regular incandescent lights, but I think they're quite difficult to purchase nowadays. We're talking about 100-watt bulbs, but most growers nowadays use either CFL or even LEDs. And in that case, the wattage just goes lower and lower. So it's really not a big investment to start off. In fact, in this photo here on the right side, you can see what the lighting looks like. You can see that grid there on top of
Perfect.
Bulbs one after the other.
Perfect. And you mentioned the hot temperatures. When temperatures get too hot, they stop blooming. What do you think is the threshold on temperature? Because of course the United States is so varied. We have people here on the audience from uttermost North Canada all the way down to the far south. So what do you feel is that critical temperature that will start to impede the flower production?
We usually see it starting. I'm going to say it in Celsius. We'll have to translate later. I
No,
actually
it's
have a
okay.
table
The
here somewhere,
Celsius
but
is fine.
so it's 35. You start seeing an effect. 38 and above is more serious. So there are
Okay.
not too many areas in the States, in my opinion, that you'll see that. Maybe like Southern California, but really south, Texas, such perhaps. In
Thank
Israel,
you.
we do get that. So an Israeli grower does find it difficult to grow in the summertime, but there are all kind of tricks there as well. For example, well, Israeli summers, we don't have rain. And that's a big advantage because then if we're growing indoors for winter production, we can then remove the plastic and place shade net instead. And that will drive you deeper into the summertime. We have growers that do grow in summertime by using the shade net. So that's, for example, one method of doing it. Also, if you're in a low humidity area, you can use sprinklers to reduce temperatures. So there's a lot of different ways to do this, but yeah, it's doable.
Thank you
Okay?
very much.
Oh,
Thank
no
you.
problem. So just a few photos. On the right side, you see a greenhouse in Israel. Just notice the height. Height is controllable. Growers play around with cutting back and up and down a little bit like they do in roses. So you can see that the people in this photo almost disappeared. They're not very tall people. They're about a meter 65, so that gives you an idea. On the left side, you can see what a bunch looks like right after harvest. Here they did go a little bit lower than the first internode. So you can see it's actually two internodes. So it's not just the top. And by doing this, you're getting a little bit more length, you're adding a little bit more foliage, but you're losing flowers. If you look at the bottom part of the photo, you'll see a side flower that hasn't really opened. And that is because it's not really a spray. I will say that somewhere behind the scenes, our breeding team is working on real sprays. But at this point in time, when people say a spray, it's not really a spray because the other stemlets on the sides are not flowering. It does give volume, it does add length, but our new varieties just have enough length as it is over the first internode that you don't need to harvest any lower. I have here a few photos from the States from my last visit in May. So the two photos on the left are from a very small scale, what you guys call, I think, micro growers in California. Look how beautiful it is doing just outdoors. And here, indeed, she's using the shade net. So the most left side photo is a younger stage just before flowering. This is more or less the stage in which we start initiating flowering. In her case, because it's summertime, it's natural flowering, and you can see the photo in the center. The one on the right is from one of the large-scale growers in California. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ocean Breeze. So there you can see what it looks like. So a bit about the varieties. Danziger has actually expanded our original scoop series into equivalent series that have different attributes. So the scoop series is mostly, I would say, characterized by the size of the flower being between 1.6 to 2.4 in diameter. But it is our largest series and has the biggest range of colors. And I will say that there are parts of the market that do prefer the smaller flower because the uses in which they use it demand a smaller flower. Within the scoop series, we have a group called Hoop Scoop. Actually, there's two varieties like that, and the only reason we signify them is because they have a very unique color pattern with a very clear center, one color, and then the surrounding another color. Okay, then we come to the focal scoop, which is the what we would see as the centerpiece flower, which is basically double the size of the scoop series. So all the varieties in the focal scoop series have very large flowers of 3.2 to 3.9 inches and above, I would say. All series, by the way, the breeding is going towards longer and stronger stems. So it's not that the focal scoop necessarily has longer stems, but it has a larger flower. Finally, we come to the Bonbon Scoop, which is a really unique series because it has a completely ball-shaped flower. And now let's go into a little bit more details on each of these so you can understand more. So this is just an example of the Scoop series. And by the way, Joanne, I marked here two of the varieties that are in the Garden to Vase program because you asked me about that. So yeah, oh, sorry, 3 of them. That's right. Blackberry scoop, marshmallow scoop, and raspberry scoop are all included in the Garden to Vase series. But you can see here just a small taste of the wide range of different colors we have in all aspects. Take a look at the banana scoop. This photo doesn't really show how yellow it is. It's not complete real yellow, but it's getting in the direction. And we already have in the pipeline a more classic yellow. Now we come to the focal scoop, which, as I said, is double the size of the flower. The photo on the left will show you the difference in the size between the two. This is not real size, but you can see the comparison between the two. And here's a sample of what we have in the focal scoop series. Also here we have 2 that belong to the Garden to Vase program, the dark purple, a focal scoop dark purple, and focal scoop lilac. Take a look at the purple lace, which is really a unique color combination. And finally, we come to the bonbon scoop. Bonbon scoop is, well, I should take a step back and say that, by the way, you're probably aware of this, but these are all not really flowers, but rather flower heads. So what you see is made up of many, many small flowers, as in all the Compositae family, like chrysanthemum and gerbera. Now, as in those other types of flowers, usually you have 2 different types. You have what we call the ray flowers, and you have what we call the disc flowers. The disc flowers are shorter and smaller, and usually they would form the classic center of like the daisy types. And then the ray flowers are the ones around that are longer. In the case of the bonbon scoop, there are no disc flowers, only ray flowers. So you don't see any center. It's like a complete ball shape, and that's what you can see in this photo. And that's what makes it really unique. Size-wise, they're midway, I would say, between the scoop and the focal scoop, 2.4 to 3.2 inches in diameter. And here's just a sample. We've recently, this year actually, in the new catalog, introduced a whole line of new bonbon scoops. So for example, on the left bottom side is the Punch, which is a new one, and the Ube. French Vanilla, second on the right on the top row, is our #1 variety in the States. This is, again, mostly for the micro growers, for the, florists, because it's such a unique, gentle pinkish color. It's basically a white with a pinkish touch. And we've recently added the Sweetness, which is a similar pattern, but with purple rather than pink. So we believe that has a very strong potential in the US market. Veronica, for those who are not familiar, basically it's a long stem with a very long spike of a flower, or inflorescence. Actually, it's many flowers. What's unique about our varieties, again, the Skyler series, is the fact that this spike is longer than what was common in varieties pre-production. The main colors are white, pink, and blue. There are other colors coming that are still in that range, like a little bit lavenderish and lilac types, but white, pink, and blue are the main colors. Again, very good synchronization between the different varieties and the timing, so that you can grow all 3 colors in the same greenhouse or hoop house at the same time. And we have introduced a new series, which I'll talk about soon, which is the Skyler Splash, that is unique in being a spray, a real spray, carrying several of these spikes on one stem. Just a bit of inspiration to show you different things that can be done. And basically what the Veronica does for the florist, for the flower arranger, is it breaks the shape or gives some liveliness and some uniqueness to the arrangement. A little bit about cultivation. So again, this is a vegetative crop from unrooted cuttings. Planting is considerably more dense than what we discussed before in the Scabiosa. So we're talking about 63, a little bit above plants per, that should be acre, not hectare, sorry. Now here it's a perennial. So the growth cycle is continuous flushing, whereas each flush is about 13 to 16 weeks from planting to beginning of harvest, and then another 4 weeks of harvest. So you can get in a year easily 2 flushes, probably above that as well, with very nice yields, as you can see, per acre. I will say that it's also very hardy plant. I believe hardiness is zone 4. I might have it here in the presentation on. So basically it goes through winter. I can say in Holland, for example, where temperatures easily go down to -20. I'm guessing that's about zone 6 maybe. They just leave them in the ground all through winter, and then of course, they don't flower, but the plant, nothing happens to the plant. It just stays in the ground, and then they come and cut back in spring and get another flowering for summertime. So for initiation for flowering, basically nothing. It just flowers on its own when it's ready physiologically. From the plant protection point of view, again, not too many issues. It's an easy crop. Whitefly is an issue, but not so much for when you're growing for the local market, because the main issue with whitefly is when you're trying to export it. And some countries will not allow whitefly in. But once you're inside the States and selling to the States, it's not an issue. So that's actually an advantage, because the growers in South America trying to export to the States have to battle the whitefly, whereas for the US grower, it can be easier on it. So for the grower, it can be grown as a perennial, as we just said. It sustains cold winter and frost. It's a flushing plant. Very easy to time the flushes. It's quite exact in its timing. So you can actually aim a flush by cutting back at a certain time for a particular holiday, let's say, when you need the flowers. Our varieties have very high tolerance to mildew disease, which used to be an issue in Veronica. And one more important thing is that because of the not very high volume, you can pack a lot in small volumes. Just a few photos. These are, the left one is from Israel, a happy Israeli grower. Wow, what a smile. And on the right side is a small display area in Holland in June. So you can see how the length it can get even in the height of summer. These photos are actually from my recent visit to the States. This is from Pyramid Flower. I was together with your good friend, John Alexander. So you can see here the crop on the left side and on the right side after harvest. For the varieties, our series Skyler, as I said before, is unique in the length of the inflorescence, which is 5 to 7 inches. It's very versatile in its uses because of this unique shape it has. No demand for cold treatment, as sometimes occurs in other Veronicas, and the color range, as I mentioned before. Let's see the varieties. So we have the Skyler Pink, Skyler White, and Skyler Blue. And again, the Skyler Blue belongs to the Garden to Vase program. So you could order this also for gardeners who want to plant it as a hobby. And finally, oh, sorry, not yet. Finally, we have one new addition. So this is something interesting, because the series that I just showed you, the pink, white, and blue, the white was not timed well together with the pink and blue. So growers would usually harvest it and then get to harvesting the pink and the blue. So we have developed a new variety, which is the white improved, which timing-wise aligns with the blue and pink, and therefore you can grow them all together. It has very long spikes, good white color. Finally, we come to the Skyler Splash, which is the spray series that I described before. And you can see here, we're talking about 5 to 6 flowering or inflorescences per stem, which makes a totally different product for different uses, probably more of a filler. It's still in its rather early stages, but gaining a lot of popularity. And basically, it's broadening the uses that growers can use them in. So I think it's a very nice thing to introduce to growers that are looking for something that perhaps others don't have. Okay, moving on to Craspedia. Our series is called Paintball. I'll soon explain why we call it paintball, but basically Craspedia is a ball-shaped yellow inflorescence, or flowering head, I should say, on a very long stem. Our series, Paintball, is the first to be propagated from cuttings as opposed to seed products that were around before. And this has enabled us to do a really serious breeding project in which we have lengthened the stems, increased the size very dramatically of the flowering head, and added also to the yield and to the disease resistance and so on. So this is basically, again, like the Veronica, a product that is used for giving accent and giving shape to an inflorescence, to a flower arrangement, but also can be used on its own, like table designs and things like that. So just to show you some inspiration, different uses of how on the left side it breaks the shape of the inflorescence. Here you can see what it looks like as a tinted product. I'll explain about that in a moment. Basically, Craspedia can be tinted in two systems. One is by spraying the flowers, and that's what you see on the left side, giving it like pastelish colors. And the other is by dipping the head in a color solution, and that gives more intense colors. This just broadens the usage of the flowers from just yellow to any color basically you want. I will say that the reaction we've been getting, even from people that usually do not like tinted or colored flowers, is that in the case of Craspedia, it's befitting. Because of the unique shape of the flower, they like it colored as well. Just look at these beautiful pastels you can achieve from it. Okay, so moving on, again, vegetative product from rooted or unrooted cuttings. In your case, of course, unrooted cuttings, low planting density. We don't really need more than, I would say, 6 plants in a net square meter of bed. So that's 26,400 in an acre. So Margaret, as I said, I'll show you a photo in a moment, but just this is the answer. The plant really grows to be, I would say, a very wide diameter of the foliar base, and that's why we don't need a high planting density. The cycle, again, is similar to the Scabiosa from the point of view of being one long flowering flush, so 12 to 16 weeks until you start harvesting, and then 16 to 20 weeks of continuous harvest. And in this time, again, very nice yields. As you can see, you can get to 560 to 640,000 stems per acre in that period of time. So again, no initiation, no specific treatment for initiating flowering. It happens naturally when the plant is physically ready. Well, this is one photo. It's not the best of the plant itself, but you can see what I mean by the plenty of stems coming up. And if you look closely, you'll see again stems at different stages of flowering, just to show you that's a continuous flush. Plant protection, again, as I said before, the main issue is soil fusarium. So we do recommend planting in a sterilized or virgin soil. If you can do separated media or like in a container, all the better. And because it's a rather fast-growing product, meaning to say the whole time it's going to be in the ground is 9 to 10 months, if you started clean, you should be okay. So for the grower, very uniform growth, very easy to control this product. It's a very big labor saver. Almost no work here required. Just put it in the ground, really nothing to it. The stems are very straight, very erect, very convenient for harvesting and packing. And again, like I said in Scabiosa, you get very high productivity in a short time span. So I think it's very interesting for the US grower. Okay, moving on. Some photos from cultivation. On the right side is a tunnel, I believe, in South Israel. This is just the beginning of the flush, so you can see stems already coming. On the left side, you can see harvested stems, just give you an idea of the uniformity of the end product. And these photos are actually from Japan. What was it, March? This March, I was in Japan. This is a tunnel in Japan. This is an interesting story because this is a tunnel that collapsed during the winter. So these plants were absolutely covered with snow. That gives you an idea about the hardiness. And then it came out of the snow and this beautiful flush came up. This is actually second year. So yeah, in a way it is a perennial, but it only flowers once a year. So on the left side, you can see the poppy. We'll talk about that in a moment. It's a different shape of the flower. Okay, moving on. So our series includes the Paintball Globe, Paintball Pop, and Paintball Jumbo that basically differ from each other in the size of the flowering head. You can see the sizes here, where Jumbo is the largest and Globe is the smallest, but still very large compared to the seed varieties. But it's important to note that the Globe, being the smaller size flower, also gives the highest yield, whereas the Jumbo, larger flower, gives slightly lower yields. Sorry. And finally, we come to our newest variety, which is the Paintball Poppy. The poppy has a different shape. Oh, sorry, a different shape to the flower, almost like an egg. Some of our growers have mentioned that it could be a very interesting product for Easter because both being yellow and shaped as an egg. You can see it has very nice size, good stem length. It's one of our better growers as well. The only thing is we don't yet know how the market will accept such a differently looking Craspedia. It's still in the process of slowly getting into the market, so let's see how that goes. As you can see also, our breeding is working on Fusarium resistance, and this variety has a certain degree of tolerance to Fusarium. We definitely see that it is much less affected than the older varieties. Okay, so if everybody's okay with that, we'll move on to our Green Dragon, our Lepidium variety. So Green Dragon is like a very fresh-looking green filler. It has like these elongated inflorescences, but actually when you're selling the product, it's already at the fruit stage. It's like these little, those white things you see are actually already the fruit of the plant. It doesn't have a lot of foliage to it, so you have this beautiful combination of green and white. Long vase life, well over 10 days. No tangling of the stems, so no breakage when you separate them. And basically in the area of green, this is something unique looking. Some samples of what can be done with it. We do have some video clips, but I won't share them now. I will send them to you so you can take a look at what it looks like when you're making arrangements. Just look how many different uses you can do with it. It basically goes with any color. So cultivation wise, it's a seed product. So what the grower is receiving as seedlings, we supply ball with the seeds, and you guys do the germination in the States. Planting density is quite high. We're talking about between 75 to 90 per net square meter. So that's 230,000 in an acre. It's basically a one flush product. So, but very quick. So 10 to 2 weeks until you start harvesting, 2 weeks of harvest, and then uproot and plant again. And in this way, if you keep on planting year round, you can get year round production. Expected yields, of course, depending on the zone. Expected yields are something like 220,000 stems an acre per one flush. So just imagine if you keep on doing flushes, how much you can get. There's no specific initiation to flowering. It flowers naturally. You can see on the right side, this is a field of our own in Kenya, growing outdoors. From the point of view of plant protection, we have seen some issues with root aphids, not too much. And again, because it's a very short cycle, if you use a clean soil, it shouldn't be an issue. But this one is also a bit sensitive to viruses. So again, try to keep it as clean as possible from thrips, which are the vectors. So for the grower, very short cycle. You can incorporate it into any annual production program that you have, either year round or for certain seasons in which the green color is more sought after. Very efficient in harvesting, the easiest. Don't tangle, no breakage. There's not a lot of inflorescence at the bottom, so you can clearly see the point of harvest. Again, high productivity in a short time span, and not many pests to deal with. So it's an easy crop for the grower, and yet a very beautiful end product. Some more photos. On the left side, you can see a greenhouse in Israel, almost harvest stage. On the right side, this is a plug with one seed from our nursery in Colombia. Okay, so Unicorn, it's our new Rumex. It's a brand new product in the market. It's really gaining a lot of curiosity. We've shown it in many of our exhibitions in the last year, and just everybody, it grabs everybody's eye. Not only is it a green, but it also has a very unique shape, as you can see. It's someone has described it as almost looking like an amaranthus, an upright amaranthus, but totally green. It has very strong upright stems, extremely high length. In fact, you know, it's not an issue length at all. You can see 35 to 47 inches. Nobody really even needs that much. You can cut it to lower than that. Okay, the shape I mentioned, very easy to handling. Now, what's unique about this, we'll talk about in the cultivation, it's also perennial. It's a seed product that is a perennial, not very hardy, but in areas that don't get too cold in wintertime, sorry, I'm mixing that up with the Enchante. This one does have a very high hardiness zone. I believe it's zone 4 to 8. So this one will go through any winter and is a perennial. Okay. Here you can see some of the uses, and look how much of a nice green backdrop it can give to any bouquet. We find it to be a very versatile in use because of its unique shape. You can cut it into smaller spikes and use them as spikes like you can see in the center photo, or you can use their natural look like in the right side, kind of spilling out of the bouquet, left side as well, I believe. Okay, now we come to the cultivation side. So this is, sorry, that's a mistake. This is a seed product. So what you're planting is seedlings, but very low density. You don't need more than 17,600 per acre. That's about 6 to 8 per square net meter. The growth cycle, so I corrected myself. I apologize again. It's a hardy perennial, zones 4 to 8. It can do about 2.5 to 3 flushes in a year, and you could just keep on producing year round. Now, to be fair, the product hasn't been around enough to tell you how many years it can survive, but we are in Kenya, for example, into 3rd year cultivation already, and no issues. So no promises, but it's a long-lasting plant for sure. Yields are quite high, not very high, but quite high. We're talking about 280 to 380 K per stems per acre in a year. We might be able to raise the density to raise the yield per area, but the plant is quite vigorous in its growth. So at the moment, to control it the best, we are going for this lower planting density.
Daniel, we do have a question. Is there any concerns of it reseeding into the field where, you know, some things can become invasive at all?
Well, first of all, obviously, in any sitting product, the answer is yes, there is a certain concern. But having said that, and also, I think I might have a photo here to show you oh, I have that, the one I showed you before. Let me go up again. If you look at the enlargement here, the harvest stage, if the grower does it properly, is way before the seeds disperse. Now, these pods do not burst in any way, okay? It's only several weeks after you should have already harvested it that it may disperse. So, having said that, obviously, if the grower just field, eventually it might happen. But if he does it properly and harvests in time, then it will not. Did I answer the question?
Okay, and yes, and then there's one other question regarding the species. I think
it's Rumex crispus.
Crispus. Okay, very good.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Okay, so this is a long day plant. So without lighting, it'll be quite difficult to get it to flower in wintering time. But because it's a perennial, you will see some flowers here and there, but definitely not a nice flush. So to get a really nice uniform flush, we do recommend using lighting to lengthen the day. And of course, starting late winter into spring, no issue all the way into late October. Plant protection wise, not too many issues. Our varieties are quite resistant. If we compare it to the wild types, much more resistant to rust and mildew. Still something to keep your eyes open to. Okay, so for the grower, as I said, it's a perennial hardy crop, zones 4 to 8. Can be grown year-round, sustains the cold winter, very grower-friendly, very low demand for labor. Basically, not much to do, except for the harvest, of course. As I said, high tolerance to rust, less pesticide requirements, and most important, being a new and innovative product, the market is just growing and growing every day. Everybody's interested in it. Just to give you a little interesting point, and that is when I was I went to the San Francisco market when I was visiting, and I saw there a grower who was just growing wild types and selling them for very high prices. And the wild types don't maintain the green. It was basically a brownish coppery colored thing, and still people were buying it. So I really believe this has a lot of potential in the US. It's just befits this green trend that is going around. Just to show you this photo on the right side, just look at the quality of the stems. This is a bouquet that I had sent from Kenya to one of the auctions in Japan that wanted to see what it looks like as an end product. and they took this photo in the auction. They were absolutely amazed. Look also how it arrived, how beautifully. So that's Unicorn. And we'll move on to our last product for today, which is Enchante, our new Limonium. So this is a unique Limonium. First of all, it is, well, it's basically a hybrid, but it's mostly what we call Limonium Perezzi. And people who knew the old Limonium Perezzi, it wasn't really a product that can be grown commercially, whereas this one is absolutely very high performing product. So that's what breeding does. First of all is the flower itself. You have the beautiful blue colored sepals. You know that in all Limoniums, the main color is given by the sepals rather than the flowers. But in the case of Enchante, the white flower remains for quite a period of time. So you get that very beautiful combination. That's why you call it glittering. It's like the glittering of white within the blue. The inflorescence, as you can see, is very wide. So you get very good volume of it. I'll just show you what a bunch looks like. Sorry, there we go. Can you see the bunch now? So this is 10 stems
it's
together.
perfect.
You can see how impressive it looks. The stems are very strong. They're almost like a status stem if you look at it, but yet the flower are not in the brushes, but rather in a spray like canopy type of a flower. The stem lengths are very good, 24 to 31 inches. Vase life, as in all Limoniums, 21 days and over. It maintains its color even when as a dried product, again, like many other Limoniums, so that makes it even more attractive. And an important point, always a little bit difficult, how do you define this trait? But it doesn't have that distinct smell that many people associate with Limonium. The only way to prove it is to sniff it. But I can tell you from my own experience that definitely, like, some Limoniums have a bit of a strong scent. This one does not. Oh, sorry. A bit of inspiration. You can see what can be done with it, either as a filler or even on its own. Look at the very nice combination with the Veronicas and the Green Dragon. So that vase on the right side is all Danzigers. Some more examples you can see with chrysanthemums, with carnations. It basically goes with anything. Just gives that beautiful blue backdrop. Okay, cultivation wise, so as all Limoniums, it is produced from tissue culture. So we obviously will supply ball with tissue culture, and you guys do the hardening there. Planting density is low, again, because it builds up such a large foliar base and is a perennial. So the planting density is 15,600 acres per acre. Growth cycle, it's either a continuous flowering or you can kind of push it into flushing by using gibberellic acid in a certain way. If you guys are familiar with the use of GA3, we can teach you how to do that. So it's basically up to the grower. Most growers, I would say, especially for the type of growers you have in the US, would prefer what you call fly picking, so that the continuous flush is actually very befitting for them. It is a perennial. However, USDA zone 10 to 11. So only in very warm areas will you be able to get through the winter. That's something that should be said. I will say that definitely in Kenya, in Israel, in South Italy, we have it as a perennial. In Northern Europe, it does not go through. But if you grow it in a frost-free hoop house or greenhouse, you'll have no issues. It will be a perennial. Expected yield, as you can see, about 600,000 stems per acre per year. So it's quite a nice producer for Limonium. No initiation for flowering, just flowers naturally. Here in the photo, you can see how vigorous the growth is. Look at that foliar base, and you see why we don't need the high density. Planting. Plant protection-wise, of course, as all Limoniums, you do have to watch out for the mildews, but we find it to be extremely resistant. And you can see here, it's grown in Kenya outdoors, and we have very heavy rains there. No issues. For the grower, it's a long-lasting perennial. Very strong and sturdy plants. You know, they go basically through anything. Good tolerance to downy and powdery mildew, as I said. Very low labor requirement. Just leave it in the field and come when you need to harvest. Very good packing rates. That's not as important for US grower, but it's good to know. And extensive vase life, as I said. So you can just keep the plant for whenever you need it.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm watching the chat line. I don't see any other questions pop up, but there's been so many good discussion points as we have been going through. So yeah, and like Daniel said, we're always here to help. If anybody needs any assistance on placing any of these fantastic products with your customers, you know, we're here to help you.